All right, so thinking about the King 4 report on governance, when we did the Companies Act, we noted the key governance structures within a company, and we said it was the board of directors and the shareholders. Those two remain as key in King. The board of directors are crucial, and the shareholders have very little involvement in the King report, but there are certain decisions that they need to still make, and therefore they are discussed in the King report. But what the King goes into more focus on is the committees, the board committees. Companies Act says you can have committees, sure, and specifically highlights the fact that certain people or certain companies have to have an audit committee, whereas King actually goes into more committees that you should have. Okay, you should have the risk committee, the nomination, the remuneration, the social and ethics, the audit. Okay, so they specifically highlight more than just the audit committee that is dealt with in Companies Act. They also do discuss in the King report that there should be a company secretary. Again, your Companies Act does discuss how certain companies have to have a company secretary. King is now saying that, even if you're not a company, you should have a company secretary. Okay, and then one more specific is internal audits. Okay, and internal audits isn't even touched on in the Companies Act. So that is new to King. It should be combined assurance, external and internal audits, whereas your Companies Act focuses solely on external audits. Okay, I just want to put here quickly the two decisions your shareholders need to make, just so that it's covered here and nicely summarized. They have to approve the appointment of directors, which is in accordance with the Companies Act requirements, and approve the remuneration policy and the non-executive directors' fees. Guys, there's a slight twist here. It's not final approval. They get to pass a non-binding advisory note, which means if they don't agree with this policy and the directors wanted to go ahead, they will actually still go ahead with it. So there is a difference here between Companies Act and King, because Companies Act gives full authority, whereas King still allows the board to make the final decision. Your board of directors, I'm not going to put the list here in terms of what they're responsible for, because they are responsible for everything that King requires. And even though King says the board can delegate responsibilities to committees, they can delegate responsibilities to internal audit, they can delegate responsibilities to management, they are ultimately responsible for whatever it was they delegated. So if there are issues or there's non-compliance done by any of those bodies, the board will be held responsible, because they actually are the managing bodies of this business. Okay. So the King is split into 7 parts, just so that you guys can understand where we're going to be focusing. The glossary of terms, you can work through that if you'd like to, but you'll figure it out, or you can refer back to a specific term if you're not sure. So don't stress about that. Fundamental concepts, you can read through that, guys, but again, not going to be specifically tested, because it's just there the structures on which king is based on the principles of ethics and so on. Then they give you king for application and disclosure. This is what needs to be disclosed in terms of king 4. So this is that apply and explain. We've already discussed that each principle, each of those 17 principles need to be discussed in their disclosure, where they're explaining how they are applying that principle within the governance of their business. Okay, and that needs to be made available to your shareholders, to stakeholders that need this. And so ultimately, this should actually be included in the integrated report. Doesn't have to be, as long as it is made available for everyone. Then they give you king 4 on a page, and this literally just lists the 17 principles. So if you just want to see in a consolidation what are the principles they have to adhere to, you can see them there. Then where we will be focusing is section 5, which is the King Code on Corporate Governance. And here is where they go and give each of the 17 principles plus the recommended practice. So this is the only section we're going to be looking at today. Then section 6 deals with sector supplements, so specific types of enterprises. In your tutorial letter, they've said only 6.5, small and medium enterprises, is applicable to you guys. You guys can just read over that. It's literally just taking the principles from King and just applying them to a small to medium enterprise. So you'll see it's, if you're comfortable with King, you can discuss the King requirements here and be fine. So I'm not even going to work through that, guys. You can read through it. It's a small section, and then that's it. The rest of 6 you need to ignore, though. So you can almost just cross that out. And then the 7, content development and process, you can also ignore. Okay, that's all the admin behind developing the King. So our focus is on 5. I would say that's where you want to be focusing. But like I say, you can go and read through the rest if you like, except for 6 and 7, which you are now wasting time reading. Okay, let's get into these principles.